Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's first program water public meeting. Tonight we'll be hearing a presentation on the program. I also want to welcome folks that are listening to the meeting on Facebook Live. Welcome. So before we get started, just want to let folks know that if you have a question following the presentation, please enter your question in the Q&A box, or you can also raise your hand and staff will be available to answer your question. We will ask you to unmute yourself so that you can ask your question. And before we move on to the presentation, I'd like to welcome Director Xue. Director Xue, please.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting. My name is Nai Xue. I represent District 5. This year, I have the I guess I should start from beginning. I'm sorry, I did not start my video. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at tonight's meeting. I represent District 5, and here I also have the privilege to serve as the chair of Valley Water Board's Policy and Planning Committee. First of all, I'd like to introduce my colleague serving on Valley Water's Board of Directors, representing District 6, our current board chair, Director Tony Estramera. Tony, can everybody see Tony? And then also representing District 3, Director Richard Santos. Okay, I assume everybody see their video oh, here is Director Richard Santos representing District 3. Yeah, hi, Director Santos. And did everybody see our chair, Director Estramera? This is he is our current chair of our board. So thank you for attending. So as the county's primary water wholesaler, Valley Water's mission is to provide sufficient, safe, and clean water to sustain this region's economic vitality and quality of life. And as you are aware, Santa Clara County and the entire California is in an extreme drought. In fact, we are experiencing the driest water year since 1977. We want to thank the businesses and residents of Santa Clara County for responding positively to Valley Water's call of conserving 15% of water usage. The current October rain also helped. However, it will take several more storms like the October one to navigate our way through this drought emergency. So I would urge everyone to continue the water conservation efforts. Every drop of water that's saved will not be lost. It will be used either for next year or in the future. On an ongoing basis, the water district, to fulfill our mission, we're always evaluating and updating the way we deliver water, whether it's drought or wet condition. As part of this ongoing process improvement, it includes our service water program. This program was established in 1974 to allow direct surface water deliveries to a limited number of properties. Valley Water is currently evaluating, updating to the surface water program and the rules and regulations that governs it. And that's the purpose of tonight's meeting. You will hear from Valley Water staff about the program's background and the proposed updates. We thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing your feedback on the proposed updates. With that, Jose, I'm turning the meeting back to you.
Thank you, Director Shreya, for your comments. Appreciate that. And to our audience who's listening to us on Facebook Live, if you want to get a copy of the presentation, we'll be posting that to the chat box as well. And then for the folks that are here on Zoom with us, I just put out a link right now where you can get a copy of the presentation that will be shared tonight. And then finally, if you have any questions, please enter your questions into the Q&A box. That will allow us to record your questions should we need to refer to them later on. In addition to that, if you're on Facebook, you can enter your questions in the chat box, and we have staff monitoring Facebook, and they will then put those questions over to us so that we can answer them. And then finally, you can raise your hand, and we will call on you so you can verbally ask your question. And so now I'd like to introduce Samina. She's an associate engineer in water supply operations. She will be giving us our presentation today. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Samina. Welcome.
Thank you, Jose. Good evening, everyone. Welcome, directors and community members. I will go ahead and share my screen. I hope you're all able to see my presentation. So I'd like to start off. My name is Samina Sheikh. I'm an associate engineer with raw water operations here at Valley Water. I've been at Valley Water for about 15 years, and our team, along with raw water operations, is responsible for operating the raw or untreated water distribution facilities that include reservoirs, pipelines that supply water to our treatment plants, to our creeks and ponds, and supply water to our surface water customers. If I can, trying to, can't seem to advance the slides here. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Okay. So the purpose of the meeting today, as Director Shreya mentioned, is to share with you all updates that are being considered to the Valley Water Surface Water Program, which is the program whereby Valley Water provides untreated surface water supply directly to customers from raw water pipelines and creeks. Most importantly, we are seeking input from you today, the stakeholders, on the proposed changes to the program prior to presenting an updated proposal to the Board of Directors for their consideration. Here's an overview of what I'll be presenting to you today. I'll start off by providing a history of Valley Water. I'll talk about the distribution system and water use. I'll provide background on the untreated surface water program, what it is, who it serves, and then I'll share with you proposed changes to the program by highlighting reasons why the changes are needed and outline the two-phased approach for the program updates. There will be time, as Jose mentioned, at the end of the presentation to receive stakeholder input and feedback in the Q&A session. And I'll also identify the next steps and where we go from here. This is a complex but great slide. It provides a representation of our groundwater supply through the years compared with local population growth. Groundwater basins are Valley Water's largest water storage facility with a capacity greater than all of the Valley Water above ground surface water reservoirs combined. So what we're looking at here, at the top of the graphic, the orange dashed line, you can see land surface elevation and how that's changed over time in San Jose. The green line represents population growth over time. And the blue line is the elevation of groundwater measured at one well in the valley. So the first inhabitants of the valley depended entirely on nature for their water, which was a challenge due to the uncertainties with rainfall. Remember that the average rainfall in this semi-arid region is only about 14 inches per year. Beginning in the 1850s, gold seekers and others moved here seeking a better life. And in the early 1900s, where this graphic begins, farming flourished and wells were dug to tap into the underground supply to water their crops and orchards, and the green valley floor earned the name Heart's Delight. But as a consequence, there was a severe decline in the groundwater levels, and concerns over land subsidence led to the formation of the district of the Santa Clara Valley Water Conservation District in 1929. That district built 6 new dams in the 1930s, and through organized water management was able to replenish the groundwater basins by collecting rainfall runoff in surface water reservoirs and making releases to percolate into the gravelly material and recharging the groundwater basins. However, as the population continued to increase and industry expanded, the groundwater levels continued to decline. More reservoirs were built in the 1950s, including Anderson and Lexington reservoirs. However, the water was still not enough. And in 1965, the first deliveries of imported water via the South Bay Aqueduct as part of the State Water Project were delivered to the county. It's incredible to think that much of the county's water supply was snow and rain and comes from hundreds of miles away. In 1974, around this time, to help the groundwater basins recover, the board adopted the rules and regulations for the service of surface water in 1974 to reduce the groundwater pumping by providing instead surface water from pipelines and creeks to the large agricultural and commercial users, which further helped the basins recover. Additional imported water was added, and deliveries of federal water through the San Felipe system came online in 1987. And over this period, land had subsided 13 feet in the North County and was effectively halted due to Valley Water's surface water and groundwater management activities. As we see, the groundwater basins have largely been sustainable for the last 30 years or so. With effective organized water management of the surface and groundwater supplies, and even though there are variations, conditions are typically more stable than they have been historically. This map shows the complex water distribution system operated and managed by Valley Water today. Valley Water's mission to provide clean water, a healthy environment, and flood protection serves for the operation of all of these facilities that you see before you. Valley Water operates 3 drinking water treatment plants and an advanced water purification center. It operates pump stations, 10 reservoirs, manages 90 miles of creeks, over 100 groundwater percolation ponds, and many miles of pipelines throughout the county. The orange lines here that you see are the raw and untreated water pipelines that move local or imported supplies through the county and help bring supplies into our county. This supply is used for drinking water, groundwater recharge, and for the surface water deliveries to customers on the program. In the south here, we can see that we have the San Felipe system that brings in the federal supplies stored in San Luis Reservoir into the county, and the Santa Clara conduit here that serves the Half Road pipeline and the customers there. We also have the Cross Valley pipeline and the Almaden Valley pipeline. And to the north, we have the South Bay Aqueduct that brings in state supplies, which is not owned by Valley Water, and it's managed by the Department of Water Resources. Valley Water is the primary water wholesaler for the county, and we work very closely with our partner retailers to serve the county's drinking water needs. And the green lines on this map show the treated water pipelines. This next slide shows a breakdown of water consumption that Valley Water manages in the county for fiscal year 2020, which is the period ending June 30th, 2020. And what we're looking at here is the amount of groundwater pumped from the aquifer in 2020, fiscal year 2020. We see that that's 54% of water use. The treated water was the amount delivered to retailers, which made up 45% of use. Recycled water was a small portion, and that's total recycled water that Valley Water manages and purifies. And surface water consumed by comparison was less than 1% of the county's total water use. And if in terms of revenue, surface water is less than 0.6% of total revenue, with groundwater and treated water making up the largest portions. So the untreated surface water program, what is it? So just to explain, the term surface water allows us to differentiate from groundwater and treated water. And the program is the delivery of interruptible, cannot be guaranteed, untreated surface water service from our local reservoirs or imports into the county or storage to customers directly from our pipelines and creeks. The program was originally intended to reduce groundwater pumping, as I mentioned earlier, by allowing customers to take water, local or imported sources, rather than extracting water from the groundwater basins. As we mentioned, the program is governed by the 1974 rules and regulations for the service of surface water that are available on our website at valleywater.org, and all recipients of the program must have an approved permit to divert surface water from Valley Water. Over time, homeowners also have become added to the program that use the water service for landscaping purposes. In 2016, the board approved 8 principles to revise and update the rules to reflect the complexity of Valley Water operations, its role as a water wholesaler, and updates to reflect conservation and environmental goals. And under that guidance, we bring to you today the proposed changes to the program for your input. I want to quickly go through some of the overarching principles that staff has been using to guide the proposal. We propose to better align with the current board policies, CEO strategies and direction, which includes no new construction of turnouts or expansions of service beyond what is currently in place, so that the service doesn't negatively impact Valley Water operations or its ability to deliver water to the drinking water treatment plants or for groundwater operations. Second, while we're doing what we can, we do seek the community's support towards water conservation goals. Despite some rains last month, we are still in a statewide drought emergency. And as you know, on June 9th, the board of directors called for a mandatory 15% reduction in water use compared to 2019, as local supply in reservoirs is low and imported supplies are limited. Third, to improve administration and cost management practices, an update to the rules is necessary. To better reflect the interruptible nature of the service, since the water supply is subject to shortage, fluctuations in flow and outages, an update to the language would be beneficial to highlight the service cannot be guaranteed. Also, when possible, the proposed changes should facilitate conversion or convert the untreated surface water to recycled water service as part of future recycled water goals. The program should aim, where possible, to avoid duplicative water service when there is water retailer service available. Valley Water is providing raw water to properties in many cases, where customers also receive treated water from retailers. And since the supply cannot be guaranteed 24/7 as interruptible, this may prove a challenge for fire suppression purposes. Valley Water is working closely with local and county fire officials to discuss surface water use for fire safety as a separate effort outside of this proposal. And lastly, to avoid impacts to Valley Water's environmental obligations, to maintain releases to streams and creeks, to supply the groundwater basins, and to supply a healthy environment, those are also being considered as part of the updates as part of this proposal. So currently, this map shows that we are where our customers are roughly located. We have 64 customers on the surface water program at this time, located all over the county. And I'm using the word customers loosely through this presentation, since Valley Water is a wholesaler, not a retailer, although we are essentially providing water through the service directly to 64 permittees out of the county's nearly 2 million residents. Most customers are receiving water from pipelines. However, there are some that divert water from creeks. And depending on where you are, you could be receiving water from our local sources, from our reservoirs, or from water imported from outside the county. The majority of our customers are located in the southern half of the county. So what are some of the uses on the program? Water is used for agriculture. The uses include businesses that grow a variety of seasonal crops and manage orchards for commercial sale, for example, cherries and apples and plums, etc., or to irrigate pasture for livestock. And we have about 25 permittees currently under that category. Municipal and industrial uses on the program include irrigation by large employers such as golf courses, watering of common outdoor areas around multi-home development communities, water used at quarries for dust control, public parks, and open spaces. We have about 19 permits under this portion of the program. And lastly, the program provides water to private homeowners for their residential landscaping around their private residences and households, for lawns and bushes and shrubs, trees and home gardens. These are non-commercial properties, and we have about 20 permits on the program under this category. So by the numbers, if we look at the graphic on the left side, we see that the majority of customers on the program remain large agricultural customers and commercial businesses that use a service to provide public goods and services. However, 31% are private landscaping customers with a relatively small amount of usage for their home and gardens when we look at total surface water usage. And again, this is comparing for fiscal year 2020. For the next couple of slides, I'd like to highlight some of the key reasons why we are proposing updates to the program. More and more, we are having to deal with the increased hydrologic variability and frequency of extended droughts. As you all know, Santa Clara is currently in an extreme drought, as I mentioned before. Water supplies across the state are threatened. Groundwater storage is decreasing, and we need to reduce consumption and recharge more with the supplies that are available. And since the supply is not guaranteed, streamlining the number of customers on the program would help reduce the potential for negative operational and environmental impacts of surface water use. This is a picture here of Anderson Reservoir taken not too long ago. And as you can see, that it's pretty dry, but as the reservoir is being seismically retrofitted. The proposed changes are also, as I explained in my earlier slides, to align with the board-approved 8 guiding principles to update the program, which includes avoiding duplicative water service when there is a water retailer service available or groundwater well source on the property available. And as you will see shortly, as I explain the program updates, the customers that are impacted by this initial proposal, nearly all are receiving retailer service for potable uses in their homes already. And I'll elaborate on that. The rules were established in 1974 and have remained unchanged in nearly 50 years and need updating to reflect current service requirements and be revised in ways that support present and future Valley water supply management and operational goals. Surface water deliveries have an impact on the ability of Valley Water to manage water efficiently and effectively as a wholesaler, to supply water to the treatment plants and for groundwater recharge, especially when supplies are limited. This next slide illustrates how surface water is an interruptible source, and much of the aging infrastructure is subject to planned or unplanned outages and fluctuations in flow. So if we look at the table here, for the period between 2015 and 2021, this table summarizes outages for these various pipelines. The South Bay Aqueduct had 7 planned outages that lasted up to 9 months and 9 unplanned events. The Almaden Valley Pipeline had 2 major outages for planned maintenance. The Santa Clara Conduit, Cross Valley Pipeline, and the Half Road Lateral have had 9 planned outages and 5 unplanned outages over that period. And I'd like to mention that Valley Water has a robust asset management program of performing facility inspections and maintenance. And you can see how at times the interruptions to surface water supply can be significant while valves and pipe sections are being repaired or replaced. During these planned outages, customers are notified and advised to switch to their alternate sources of water, which could be either retailer service or groundwater wells. And just to emphasize, customers should be aware that of the interruptible nature of the untreated surface water, and that they may be better served by a more reliable source in some cases. And looking forward, changes to the program would help conserve supplies to meet water supply obligations for drinking water treatment, for groundwater recharge in creeks and ponds, and also provide environmental benefit from the releases to creeks and for fish and wildlife. With Anderson Reservoir supply being unavailable for the next 10 years as it is seismically retrofitted, supplies for the surface water program may be further constrained. Valley Water is looking to have purified water as a future source to increase water supply reliability that may in the future be used instead of untreated surface water as a more drought resilient source. So what are the changes being proposed? In a nutshell, a two-phased approach is being proposed. Phase 1 would be to reduce the size of the program by the end of 2023 by reducing the number of permittees. Phase 2 would be the development of revisions to the 1974 program rules that may require more time to finalize. So let's take a look at the updates being proposed. For phase 1, all domestic landscape use customers will be off the service by end of 2023. This proposal would impact a little less than 1/3 of the current customers where retailer service or groundwater wells are available to supply the water. So who does this impact? This impacts about 20 or so customers that are currently using Valley Water raw water service solely to water lawns and gardens outside private residences and single family dwellings. These customers are almost all located in District 1. Although the customers have been confirmed to have either one or more additional sources of water available to them, most are already receiving retailer service for their potable use. Whether it's retailer service or a groundwater well located at their properties, Valley Water proposes to coordinate with the individual customer to confirm the availability of the alternate source of water that can be used to meet their landscaping needs as part of the implementation of this phase. Secondly, we believe this solves inequity of neighbors that have an established alternate source of water continuing to receive the program benefit of having an inexpensive Valley water supply solely for private landscaping and not for any public goods or benefits that may serve the community as a whole. And this speaks to Valley Water managing the county's water supply for the benefit of all as the county's primary water wholesaler and manager of the groundwater basins by providing service solely for the purposes of watering for landscape purposes at single family dwellings. It's inconsistent with providing an equitable service that benefits the community. The program was originally intended for agriculture and industry, and essentially there is inequity in Valley Water providing a retailer style service to a select few small users where a neighbor may not enjoy the same program benefit. Thirdly, this proposed phase will preserve the interruptible service to current agricultural and municipal and industrial customers that are providing goods and services to the community. In many cases, these established large-scale entities provide numerous community benefits that include employment, food production for public consumption, economic benefit for the region, and development through goods and services, open public spaces for the community to enjoy, and other recreational and environmental benefits. Additionally, by switching to a more reliable and equitable source of water, landscaping customers may be incentivized to conserve more, and this will help support outdoor conservation and conserve supplies in the groundwater basins for the benefit of all users. By reducing the number of customers that may impact water management efforts, this will also help to benefit valley water operations. Any domestic landscape use customers under this phase that use surface water as an alternate supply for fire safety will be contacted and guided by a separate valley water effort. For phase 2, this refers to the revisions of the surface water rules, which are the overarching document that sets the parameters for providing the service, and as we have mentioned, have not been updated since they were first adopted in 1974. As valley water operations have changed over the past 50 years, as more treatment plants have come online, with the increasing population and urbanization, changing environmental and conservation goals, there is an opportunity to modify the rules to reflect those changing operations. So we are looking to modify the rules, and I have included here some updates that are being proposed as part of the phase 2 revisions. We are proposing to update the language to include a metering requirement and any applicable fees for the delivery of service to improve cost management and administration of surface water deliveries. The second bullet here shows that service will be specified to exclude domestic landscaping use. We are, and this was carried on from the intent for phase 1 to operate a more streamlined program that limits the delivery of untreated surface water solely for private landscaping use. We would like to propose incorporating into the rules that customers may be required to install backflow preventers to prevent cross-contamination, specifically customers that rely on a well or retailer connection for their potable needs. There is a potential health risk from cross-connection of those supplies, and this update would help to address that. Another proposed revision would be to include language reminding creek diverters to comply with all local and state requirements for operating their in-stream diversion. And valley water may require evidence of such for future surface water deliveries. And lastly, to emphasize the interruptible nature of service and that the supply may be subject to shortages and fluctuations in flow and outages, we propose incorporating a process such as an annual acknowledgement from customers that the untreated surface water cannot be guaranteed. And with that, I am nearing the end of my presentation here. And before I hand it back to Jose to open up for the Q&A session so that we can hear from you and get your feedback on the proposed changes to the program and indeed on any information that's been shared with you today, I'd like to close by providing a quick update on the next steps following this meeting. We do have another public meeting scheduled for Thursday this week where the same information will be presented in case for folks that did not have an opportunity to attend today. Following those two public meetings, once we have received your input as stakeholders of the program, we plan to return to the Valley Water Board in the winter of 2022, possibly early next year, with an updated proposal for the board's consideration. And once approved, this will be followed by the implementation of phase 1 of the proposal, while staff will continue to work to develop a plan to revise the surface water rules as part of phase 2 that may involve further public outreach. And lastly, I've included here some contact information for you of staff that you may reach out to with questions. If they're not addressed today, feel free to contact them following this meeting if you need to. There's Greg Williams here, Deputy Operating Officer for the Raw Water Division, Bassam Kassab, my manager, Water Supply Operations Manager, and Jason Arajo, the Water Resources Supervisor. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Jose.
Great. Thank you very much, Samina, for that presentation. Really appreciate that. So before we jump into the Q&A session, just want to remind folks that if you're listening to us on Facebook Live, you can enter your question into the chat and staff will relay that question over to us. If you're joining us via Zoom, you can either raise your hand and we'll recognize you and unmute you so that you can ask your question verbally, or you can enter your question into the Q&A box. We ask that folks please enter into the Q&A box and not the chat box. The Q&A box will allow us to record your questions so that we can always refer to it in the future. And then finally, as we had mentioned earlier, we're recording this meeting and we'll be posting the video of the meeting to the event page. Also, the presentation is also located on the event page. I posted that earlier in the chat box, so I'll post it again shortly. So with that, let's turn it over to the questions. And it looks like we have one question already in the Q&A box. The first question is from Will. The question reads, how would a raw water customer in Valley Water determine if there is alternative water retailer service available? Samina, can...
Yes, that's a great question, and whether they are a customer that may be impacted by phase one or not, we can certainly work with them to identify the alternate sources that may be available to them. And so if they would like to provide us with their contact information, we can certainly help them to get that information.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm looking to see if we have any other questions, any attendees that might have a question that they would like to for us to answer. Great. I have a question, maybe something that maybe you can share with us. The surface water program, is that a common practice throughout California, or is this unique, something unique here in Santa Clara County?
Well, I may look to others to help answer that question, but I believe that the as I mentioned in my slides, that the condition was to address the decline in groundwater levels for Santa Clara County, and so was specific to our region. I cannot speak to other areas outside of that, but certainly there was a concern over land subsidence, and that was why the predecessor of Valley Water was created in 1929. So it was a problem that was affecting this region in particular, and the groundwater basins here locally.
Great. We received a question here from John. The question reads, so what you are saying here is you are cutting off all surface water to Morgan Hill users for food production, landscape, and individual home use.
Let me make sure I understand that question correctly. As part of phase one, the proposal is being considered at this time is to remove single-family homeowners that are using the water solely for their private landscaping, lawns, and gardens around their homes, not for entities that have a commercial business. So I hope that clarifies that this would not impact businesses that produce crops and orchards for commercial for sale. This would not impact. These are single family residences that receive our our Valley Water service for their private home use externally.
Great, thank you for that response. And also, in response to the first question that we received about a retailer, I posted into the chat box a link where you can find out who your retailer is. So that link is there. Okay, we have a follow-up question from John again. His question reads, so if I have a commercial business located on on average where my home is, how will that be treated?
That's a great question, and John, please, and as I included in our proposal, we will be reaching out to each individual customer that is impacted by phase one, and kind of review and confirm that information with you. If the criteria is not met, for example, if you do have a business, then maybe we can discuss that. And it's definitely, it sounds like you have a unique situation there that we would probably want to look into further with you, and we'll be happy to do that.
Samina, may I also,
sure.
or Jose, may I also follow up? So I just want to, maybe a little bit clearer, right? So if it is for commercial, the water that's being used for commercial use, we're not looking at that, but we are looking at the domestic water use for residential. So watering your lawn or other things like that. I just wanted to also make the distinction, in case there are others here, that we do have some customers that have both agricultural use where they're producing crops for that meet the district definition of agriculture, right? We're not looking to, you may have an account that has both of those. We're not talking about the agricultural use, but we are talking about if you have a dual use where you have a little bit of watering your lawn and a big portion of ag or something else. We're just talking about and we'll work with you, with the water masters and the others. We're talking about reducing or sunsetting the lawn watering. We're not talking about the commercial use or the agricultural use. So some of you may have joint accounts. Some of you may have multiple meters. We will work with each one of you individually to ensure that your agricultural use, your commercial use is still moving forward. We just want to work with you on the sunsetting of your domestic irrigation use for landscape irrigation. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, Aaron, for clarifying that. Thank you. I see that we've not received any questions in the Q&A box. You have a question here from Catherine, and it reads, and if the water is used only for landscaping? Is the question is, what if the water is only used for landscaping? I'm assuming that's the question.
Right. So then I believe in that would phase one proposal would apply to them.
Okay.
That would be a property that would be impacted by this proposal. Yes.
May I also chime in? So yeah, we would like to work with you to no longer, we'd like to sunset that part of the program, knowing that you know, and working with, so that you would have to use your other water supplies available to continue with your landscaping. So yes, landscaping, residential landscaping, that's non-commercial, non-ag, watering lawns or other things like that. That is part of the program that is sunsetting, and we're asking you to switch to your other water supplies to water your residential landscaping.
Great. Aaron, while I have you here, I have a question for you. Maybe you can help maybe explain a little bit more. This program obviously is part of the evaluation the Valley Water does when it comes to its water supply. Can you maybe give us a little bit more about that? I mean, what is the Valley Water does, when it looks at all its water sources and its supply?
Well, definitely, and I think Samina kind of mentioned some of these things as we first started, that Valley Water is a wholesaler, and again, this program itself actually started as as an agricultural only program, and I think what we want to kind of highlight here is that these rules have been around since 1974, and many things have changed, and along with that change is the district's changing in water supplies and understanding how we can most efficiently use the water supplies that we have, and most efficiently make sure that we're using the public's using the water for good beneficial uses and making sure that that's fair and equitable use of the water and the cost of the water for those that are there. So again, this program is something that we've been working on for quite a while, since 1974. We've been looking to upgrade these rules. We're starting with this phase 1 of this time frame of sunsetting the domestic side, and then we're going to continue with the future phase, where we'll be talking about some of the things that Sumina mentioned before, such as adding a backflow preventer or making sure that we're ensuring that the water is being beneficially used and is safe for all.
Great, thank you for that response, Aaron. Let's see here. So someone mentioned contacts and following up that they had a specific question. Samina, would you be able to share that slide again that's got the contact information in case folks didn't catch the names and the email addresses and the phone numbers? I thought that was a very helpful slide. So if you can maybe put it up for a few seconds or so, for in case people want to write this down, and also just so that people know, if you go back to our Valley Water events page, you'll be able to also get a copy of the slide, which contains the contact information for the staff that's listed, that's available to answer specific questions to your property, specific questions about your business, and what that looks like. So staff is available to assist with that. And I'm going to go ahead and put the link in again for folks who want to get a copy of that presentation that's available. And as Samina mentioned, we are scheduled to do a second meeting this coming Thursday. Well, we'll cover the same information, so that if your question wasn't answered, or you just think of something in the middle of the night and want to ask staff, you'll have the opportunity to do that again at Thursday's meeting, which I believe is at noon. Checking to see if we received any more questions from our audience, either on Facebook Live or on here. No, don't have any hands raised. Okay, great. Okay, we put the contacts up. Samina, I wonder if you can share with us sort of, you talked a lot about the history of the program and its uses. I wonder if you can share a little bit about the program actually, I was going to ask if is it possible to maybe go a little bit over about what some of those proposed changes are for that phase 1. So I think there's a questions about phase 1 versus phase 2. And I think maybe if we can focus in on phase 1, which is what we're going to be, which is what our board will be discussing at a future board meeting next year. So if we can maybe look at that to just help sort of clarify what's coming before us, I think that would be helpful. I know sometimes when there's so much, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I know when there's a lot of, go ahead, take your time. I was just going to say that when you have a lot of information coming at you, sometimes it's just good to go back and sort of recap, especially those key points, right? And you did such a good job as just sort of summarizing the key points in your presentation as to what's that phase 1 look like, that I think it'll be worth sharing with folks. Just so there's clarity as to what's going to be happening, and I think that's always important to do.
Yeah, and if you just bear with me 1 second,
of course.
I will go ahead and share that again.
So while you do that, I'm wondering if I don't know if this is a question for you or somebody else on staff, but we received another question / comment from Catherine. It reads, I believe the other source of water will cost up to 20 times what I am paying now. How is that equitable? Is her question.
Jose?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I think it was, I think Catherine was, it was something I quoted. So I think what we'd like to, and I'd like to maybe, take a step back and look at it from another side. So say we have 20 or 30 customers that are getting a source of water that is 10 times cheaper than their neighbor or somewhere else. I guess the part that we look at it as the other side is how is that fair and equitable to the other 500,000 people living in the South Bay, in the South County, while 20 or so people have the ability to get 10 times cheaper water than others. We also want to make sure that we're using that landscape use or others. We're saying domestic for a single house. As a wholesaler, we're trying to also understand if there are public benefits or further things from things happening. We do understand the impact though, and I'm not trying to be tone deaf on those types of things, and we do understand that paying 10 times more for the water is going to be difficult, but these are the types of things that we would like to move forward with this program to make sure that then everybody would be paying the same amount in a neighborhood for that water moving forward.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate your comment. Okay. And for that,
Did you want me to just kind of recap?
yeah, just a sort of very brief, just to remind folks.
Sure. So the two-phased approach. So as phase one, the update as part of phase one would be the removal of the residential domestic landscaping use by the end of 2023. And what I have listed underneath that are some of the reasoning behind and the benefits for that change and for that update that's being proposed. As I mentioned, it will impact approximately 1/3 of the customers. And as Aaron was speaking to, will solve that inequity of neighbors with an alternate supply that are using retailer service possibly, and bring everyone onto a kind of a level playing field there, and as well as continuing to support our water conservation goals and reducing the number of customers, minimize impacts to Valley Water operations that may be occurring from continued service there.
Great, thank
you.
you.
And phase two, which may take a little more time, refers to the actual revisions for the future of the program with the rules and revisions to that document that governs the program. And that, as I mentioned, may take some more time, may also involve further public outreach as we get closer there on some of the ideas. Here we've listed a few that are being considered at this time, but this will be an effort, and we will plan and bring that back to the community once we're a little further along. And once the proposal in its entirety is approved.
Great, great. And then you indicated phase one would be going to the board sometime next year, right, for their consideration.
Yes, and so I can skip forward to that. So we are, once we've had the 2 public meetings, the second one is later this week, we do intend to return to the board with an updated proposal for phase 1 and phase 2 by winter of 2022. And so we're looking at early next year for returning to the board with that proposal.
Okay, and another opportunity for the community to make comments on it as well. Obviously.
Well, this is the opportunity to comment on at least the phase 1 portion of the proposal. And if the board approves, then the implementation of phase 1, we would work towards that. However, the revisions to the rules, as I mentioned, will take some more time. And if the board agrees, we can at least begin to develop a plan for the revisions of those rules through next year and into next year.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I don't see any more questions. As I mentioned, we have our meeting coming up on Thursday. We'll have a follow-up meeting. And with that, I would like to invite Dr. Shweta to give us closing remarks as we end tonight's meeting.
Okay.
Welcome back, Dr. Shweta.
Okay, thank you, Jose. And thank you, Samina, for this presentation. And also thanks to all the staff who supported tonight's public meeting. And of course, big thanks to all the attendees for this meeting. I want to take this opportunity to send our message one more time that please continue your water conservation efforts. We offer many incentive programs and tips to help you to do an even better job on conserving water. We have a website called watersavings.org. If you just get on that website, there's incentive program, there's all kinds of tips, and you can get free parts to help you do a better job in water conservation. So with that, I thank you for attending tonight's meeting, and good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.